Waiting.
I'm happy.
Good morning. It is Sunday, but not just any Sunday. It's the first Sunday of the new year. Let's all ring in 1937 because that's where we are right now, guys. We got all sorts of misinformation flying around, making certain that cannabis is illegal. I got other countries going into other countries, and the next thing there's Sudetenland. So let's discuss that and a whole bunch of other things, including why it's impossible to scrum it here on the rotation. I mean, I thought last year was crazy. Boy, was I wrong. we started out this year with a bang, which I could never even have imagined last year, which is, I guess, good. Keeping my elderly adult mind active by throwing things at me I had no idea was going to actually happen. But here we are. And I am Gary Stein. You're a political director and policy director for Suncoast NORML.
That was too loud.
I was just fine. And to my right, your left, our deputy director and master of business administration and the proprietor of Chillum CBD and Mushroom Dispensary, Carlos Angel Jose Armida.
Órale.
Carlos, los y malos.
Yo soy tu papá.
and right below me here, our beautiful social director and also media influencer. I'm using that word correctly, right? Katrina, how we doing today?
We're doing, y'all. Y'all make sure y'all get into it today. Jump into the conversation.
Yeah. And our guest today, a friend of the show, somebody I've known since this whole thing began back in 2013, and we started trying to figure out how science and politics could possibly mesh. I still don't have the answer to that one, but I do have our good friend, Dr. Joseph Rosado. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm well. And yeah, it's amazing that we all met. Like, we are the OG for MMJ in the state of Florida, because back in 2013, 2014, when Florida Cannabis Coalition was partnering with United for Care, we had been on stage speaking together, advocating, debating, sheriffs all over the state with, John Morgan, his brother, may he rest in peace. So, wow, a lot of water under the bridge, but yet we still have the same freaking conversations. Like, where's the growth, Gary?
Well,
Right.
the growth supposedly is in the accumulation of information as we continue to do research. Now, here's a question I have to you to start out with. We just got the idea that they are actually going to reschedule, not deschedule, to Schedule 3. And if it actually does happen, because it's basically a continuation of the process, which was already stalled before, and we don't know what's actually going to get going. In fact, it's been, 2-3 weeks, and Pam Bondi has not even signed off on the executive order yet to actually get it to go forward. But their big question is, we need this because we have to have more research. Now, you are involved in that on a boots on the ground basis. What research do we need right now?
Well, the main research we need right now, and it seems to be a buzz topic. I mean, even Yale University did a study on scromiting with 1 M. Right, Carlos? Not 2 M's?
How many spelling mistakes can I make?
In one day on one ad. Anyway, but yeah, scromiting is like a big thing. In fact, when I started showing the link for today's conversation, a lot of my colleagues, one in particular that graduated from the same high school I graduated from or went to in the Bronx, he's an ophthalmologist. He went online and started Googling what scromiting was. And he's like, hey, I'm old school, Cheech and Chong days. I don't know what the hell this stuff is. And so I gave him we addressed it. We went back and forth. And then he went in to, of all places, UM, to get information on University of Miami Health. But at least the conversation was starting. But this topic has gotten so much buzz of late that I even included it in the second edition of my book, Hope and Healing, the Case for Cannabis, which is scheduled to come out in, you guessed it, April 20th this year, just like the first time back in 2019. And in fact, it's on my editor's desk right now as we speak, Rodney Miles. And if anybody's interested in writing a book, reach out to Rodney Miles, DM me, PM me, because he's taking new clients again. But yeah, so this topic is of great importance because it's misdiagnosing. It's any person that goes into an emergency room anywhere in the United States, not Florida, anywhere in the United States, and they admit to being a cannabis user, and they are having nausea and vomiting right off the bat, or as they say in Connecticut, right off the whip. It's cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, and it's an overutilized diagnosis that's extremely rare. Defined, believe this or not, as the excessive or heavy use of cannabis. So I researched what the heavy use of cannabis was so I can include it in my book. And it's defined as someone that uses cannabis 20 days within the previous 30 days, every day, at least 20 times in the previous 30 days. Well, I guess I'm a heavy user because I use cannabis every day. I use an edible to sleep. I use an edible in the morning to deal with the 27, 30 patients I see during the day, as well as staff. I vape in the morning, I vape at night. So I guess I'm a heavy cannabis user.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, we're talking about a product which they've just said that they actually agree has medical use. Now, how often does a doctor prescribe a medicine and say you only have to take it 20 out of the next 30 days?
I mean, the ADD medicines. When I was prescribing ADD meds, I would tell people to use it Monday through Friday and not use it on the weekends to give their receptors a break and not create dependence and addiction, because it is an amphetamine. And so with children in particular, I would have the parents give them the medicines Monday through Friday and then take the weekends off. So yeah, that's 20 out of 30 days, but still 20 out of 30 days. Well, we use it daily. And and then another article said using 3 to 4 joints per day. Well, the typical joint contains about 20 milligrams of THC. So if you multiply that by 3 or 4, you're looking at 60 to 80 milligrams per day. In the state of Florida, you get 70 grams over 35 days. 2.5 ounces becomes 70 grams. So that's 2 grams per day. And we're talking about an 80 milligram dose. Milligram concentration, volume, what the hell? Like, there's so much misinformation. And again, God bless the ER doctors. Barry Gordon, shout out to Barry Gordon and all the other ER doctors. They have limited time to deal with somebody. So somebody comes in, nausea, vomiting, and cannabis user, hyperemesis syndrome. Well, wait a minute. How about evaluating? Does this person have cyclical vomiting syndrome? Does this person have gastroparesis? Is this person a diabetic? Is this person a cancer patient and is getting chemotherapy? Do they have a hormonal imbalance? Do they have panic attacks? Growing up, whenever I had issues, whether I got stressed, whether I was nervous, whether I had a big test, whether I had a presentation, believe it or not, I had social anxiety when I had to speak in front of my class. You never think it now, but back in the day, I would throw up before I would get in front of my class. I'd have to go to the bathroom and throw up. Did that make me have cannabis hyperemesis syndrome? I wasn't using cannabis in elementary school. So you're laughing. What's the joke?
It reminded me of that Jamie Foxx movie where he threw up before he played football every time. Any given Sunday or whatever. No, okay. So first off, I have to admit something to you, Dr. Rosado. Unfortunately, I must be some sort of addict or something, because I had about 500. It was my day off, to give it to preface it. But I had about 500 milligrams of RSO yesterday. So there must be something really wrong with me. But I'm still not throwing up everywhere. I don't understand.
I've served on several IRBs. You're familiar with internal review boards. And whenever we get a proposal, the first thing we do is we go over the executive summary on a word-by-word basis to see if there's any terminology or anything that would make the study illegitimate, things of that sort. I think that one of the very first words that come up here is scromiting. Now, I took third grade anatomy, and I remember this thing called an epiglottis that they told us was a little flap that covered either the trachea or the esophagus, so you could not swallow and breathe at the same time. For the same reason, you cannot scream and vomit at the same time, because on one case, the epiglottis is covering the esophagus, on the other side is covering the trachea. You can't even talk softly while throwing up, or you can't tell somebody you're throwing up while you're throwing up, quite frankly. So how could you possibly scream while vomiting?
Yeah, Dr. Rosado, I'm glad you're here because I would like your medical opinion. The other day I was doing a dab and I sneezed right after I did the dab. And then while I sneezed, I farted, and it came to my attention. It came to my attention that that's called snarting. And I was just wondering if cannabis makes you snart.
Hey,
I mean, you experienced it.
You experienced it, and as you get older, then you'll probably pee on yourself.
No, seriously. So
as your prostate gets larger, then you'll pee on yourself, and now you've got the trifecta.
Okay, so seriously, I had an employee at one point that had issues with their stomach. Went into the doctor, and the doctor ended up diagnosing CHS on him, right? Here's what fucking blew up some red flags, though. All right, they didn't really offer any. They were just like, you need to quit smoking weed. What? And then they offered all of these others. So they gave them a list of foods that they shouldn't eat, and it seemed like they were trying to treat something else. You know what I mean? So,
and it's like somebody was a medical study.
Yeah, well, let's hit that point right now. And I'm really glad you brought this up, Carlos, because not all vomiting in cannabis users is CHS. It is not all cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. And so today, thankfully, we're going to be separating biology, behavior, and neurology so patients stop getting mislabeled, because it's a bias. All it is a manipulation and a bias in the majority of our emergency rooms, attacking people that are using a plant medicine, a plant-based medicine. It is that diagnosis is ridiculous. When I first, back in 2017, I started my first cyclical vomiting syndrome patient. She was in her early 50s. Shortly after that, I started an adolescent, a 15-year-old who's now in her early 20s. Again, right around the same time, 17, when I started actually recommending, because we actually had products, because we had laws in the books, but we had no products. We had the first law in 2014, the Compassionate Care Act, that was making people wait 90 days to get their cannabis, but we had nothing. And then in 2016, we added the Right to Try Act, but we still had no product. And we didn't get anything until August, where I gave it to the 35-year-old with brain cancer, and then 3 months later to the little boy that was chronically ill. So shortly after that, I started getting all these really bizarre conditions. And the first two that I got were a 50-year-old female and a 16-year-old female with CBS. And they were using cannabis for their aid. And every time they went into the emergency room, they would hit, especially the 15-year-old, the mother, she got DCF called on her, for misuse and child abuse, and accusing that she was giving her daughter the medicine that was making her sicker, and accusing her that because she allowed her daughter to use cannabis, that it was making the daughter sicker. Well, they realized that all the little girl had was cyclic vomiting syndrome, and the cannabis was indeed helping her. So again, they intertwine, but they're not the same thing.
That's what's so strange.
You just had to balance out.
My mother was going through chemo recently, and the only thing that really
sorry to hear that.
Well, it's actually okay now. She's beat everything. She's good. She's in remission. So nobody worry. But one thing that really helped her going through chemo was a product that I carry, which is a 1-to-1 ratio of THC and CBD. And that was actually the only thing that was able to get rid of her nausea. And it's my understanding too that Marinol, which is like a synthetic form of THC, is even, that's what it's prescribed for, is to get rid of nausea.
Well, the 2 FDA approved Schedule 3 medications, so they didn't need an executive order to be Schedule 3s. They are Schedule 3s. They are made in labs, which is dronabinol, also known as Marinol, and Sesamet. And the indication, you said it, is nausea, vomiting associated with chemotherapy, as well as wasting syndrome. So people that cannot keep food down because they're throwing up, and anorexia, inability to eat. But here's the disclaimer that I give a lot of my patients. They're like, well, I could just have my doctor write me a prescription for this. I'm like, yeah, but it's a pill. If you're feeling nauseous, if you're sick to your stomach, and I give you a pill, and you got to swallow that, what's that going to do? It's going to stimulate your desire to throw up. It's going to make you more nauseous. So why not use a product that's not going to make you feel nauseous, i.e. an inhalation? And you don't necessarily have to smoke it. If you don't want to smoke it, if you don't want to vape it, if you want to dab, MUV in the state of Florida has a meter dose inhaler. It looks just like an albuterol inhaler. You can inhale that. Trulieve has a product called Canatol, a nasal spray. 1 squirt gives you 5 milligrams of medicine. That bypasses all receptors, goes right into the CB1 receptors, TRPV1 receptor in your brain. Boom, we're off to the races. So
how does that differ from ondansetron sublingual?
Sublingual is is a great option, and a lot like Zofran and a lot of the anti-nausea medicines, Phenergan, they have like films where you put them in your mouth and they dissolve. In your mouth. And the other alternative have been suppositories. Well, Knox back in the day, now Fluent, used to have suppositories, but they took them off the market. But that's another alternative to address and treat nausea, are cannabinoid cannabis suppositories to address the nausea, which I wish it would come back, because a lot of patients did well with the cannabis suppositories, particularly with colorectal cancers or liver cancers, because by using it in a suppository, it bypassed the liver, no first pass metabolism, and so it allowed for the medicine to enter the system and bypassing the liver. And it's the fastest mode of administration. It's 55% faster than an oral ingestion. So, let's use that. But for whatever reason, Fluent discontinued it, and no other dispensary has taken the bull by the horns and created another suppository. But these are all ways to circumvent and address nausea without having to take something orally to make them possibly make them sicker.
Well, some people have mental allergies for taking suppositories. they just can't seem to
exit only, right?
They can't seem to do the deed. And they won't buy themselves dinner afterwards. But I think it is so important that we get involved in making certain we don't think that correlation is causality, because so much of that, what you mentioned, the fact is just strictly, yes, a person was nauseous, but no, not necessarily for the reason that they think it is. And are there studies out there that directly contradict? Because I'm almost certain this whole scromiting thing came from safe approaches to marijuana and our good friend Dr. Kevin Sabet, because all of a sudden it's got spread so evenly across mainstream media. It wasn't coming from a single source where one person reported it and then another person. All of a sudden it was just all over the place, all at once. So you have to guess. Or
they want to hit somebody with cannabis use disorder. So, Carlos would have been labeled cannabis use disorder because he had took 500 milligrams of RSO, not knowing that this man's got the tolerance of God knows what, and he must have more cannabinoid receptors than Snoop, because to be able to assimilate all that and work in his favor. But now they want to say, oh, well, it's cannabis use disorder. Well, there's no vomiting with cannabis use disorder. Cannabis use disorder is a behavioral issue. It is a psychological dependence. It's someone that believes that they need to use cannabis in spite of it causing problems in their life. It has nothing to do with nausea and vomiting, but they want to intermingle and use one and tie it with another when never the twain shall meet. One has nothing to do with the other. And the basic diagnosis, which should be evaluated, cyclic vomiting syndrome, which is very common in the young. I mean, that's what I had. I would venture to say that's probably what I had growing up, because whenever I was stressed, whenever I was anxious, I would get sick to my stomach and would throw up. It had nothing to do with the fact that I wasn't using any cannabis.
And I think it's important to clarify one thing here. Is we're not denying that CHS is a thing.
Oh, no.
CHS
it is real.
Is a real thing. It's just there's a lot of doctors that don't have the insight that Dr. Rosado here has, and it's often misdiagnosed, right?
Yeah. You know, you can have cannabis use disorder without cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. But on the flip side, you can have cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome without cannabis use disorder. You know, and the challenge is when clinicians mix these up, patients get mislabeled and dismissed, which is a cruelty to the individual, because now after that, what's the next step? Oh, you need to go see a psychiatrist. You've got a mental health disorder. Oh, no, I'm not crazy. I'm just sick all the damn time.
Right.
Well, I've noticed that there's in the articles, there's basically what is called a context bias, which basically means they start out with a very small n, which is the number of people who are infected with this. And if the number is small, it makes the results less legitimate, because if they say there's a 10% increase and there was only 10 patients, then you have 11. You don't have 1,100.
Yeah, and I mean, for it to be statistically significant, based on all the statistics classes I've taken in medical school, undergraduate and master's, you need at least 20 for it to be statistically significant, and not an incidental finding. And so it's important to have the proper number. Now, Gary, you're the political guy. Do you perceive that this whole conversation of scromiting and CHS is a segue to the capping conversation of capping the amount of THC in the products?
It has been for several years, actually. They have used that in a number of cases when there has been THC caps put in there. Inevitably, cannabis hyperemesis syndrome comes up as an issue. And I'm certain that Bertha Madras has brought it up God knows how many times. And they've always referred to her as well as they talk about the fact that there's an increase in psychosis as well when they're talking about THC caps. And I can tell you that I've gone to various recreational states. I love going to Michigan, it's my hometown, where you see a lot of products over 30% THC, which, to be honest with you, medically, you might need. Recreationally, you really don't. It has more to do with at that point in time, the terpene profile and things of that sort, as far as where you go, as far as that. And you don't necessarily have to have THC over 30%. But the point is, it's not necessarily the concentration of THC that is the issue here. It is the politics. And like any homeopathic thing, not one size fits all.
I was watching this, it was from the 90s. I just came across it on YouTube, but it was like MTV behind the scenes, and it was on marijuana, and like this girl was like reporting on like marijuana in New York City, the underground world. They like went to the border and they found like people smuggling marijuana, and they're like, oh my god, you could put it inside a tire. But you're absolutely right, Gary. Is the same propaganda that's going on now. They actually had like a doctor come on and say, well, in the 60s, marijuana was about like 5% THC. Now it's about 10%. And people are going fucking crazy with this 10% THC stuff. You know, like the propaganda has not changed at all. They're still using it. They're just, kind of revamping it for the times. They're changing the percentage levels.
Yeah, it seems that 10% seems to be the sweet spot, because that's the number that keeps resonating everywhere. Because I was in Colorado at the National Interdisciplinary Cannabis Summit, and you have politicians there, you have judges there, attorneys there, physicians, advocates, etc. And it seemed that, and there was NIDA folk there, of course, and it seemed that 10% seems to be the key point, the key percentage that everybody wants, the cap to be at 10%. Well, when I've got somebody that's terminally ill, that's already on a morphine pump, like that first pediatric patient that I started back in late 2016, he was 15 years old, had a morphine pump, was getting 16 milligrams of morphine every 4 to 6 hours, but had the capability of doing a bolus in between for quote unquote breakthrough pain. He was barely 100 pounds. He was already on hospice, which is why he had the morphine pump.
Yeah, it sounds like the camp protocol.
Yeah, he was laying in his hospital bed in his room, drooling, looking at his crotch. He wasn't participating. The minute we got him on that 1-to-1 CBD THC, also known as Soothe from Surterra, we were able within a month to drop the dosing of the morphine from 16 to 8. He was no longer laying in his hospital bed. He was asking his mom to make him rice, beans, and meat
because that man was hungry. He was ready to eat. That's how you do it. He was
ready to gain some weight. He was ready to engage with the family. Now all of a sudden it's a different story. And the hospice nurse would talk to the mom when I wasn't around and say, how comfortable do you feel with what Dr. Rosado is doing? Like, do you feel okay with cutting back on his morphine? And she's like, look at my son. I'm getting my son back. My son is like engaging with his family. He's asking for food. It's like,
right.
It's like we were feeding him through a tube. Now he's asking to eat.
Absolutely. It balanced out. This is the thing to do. There's no in between. There's no way around it. We don't even need a medical doctor for that at this point.
Exactly.
The plant
have you ever had a situation where you had a patient that needed large amounts of THC, and then all of a sudden CHS came into play and got in the way of treatment? Or
that's not happened to me yet.
Okay.
I've not done that. I've not found that yet, because again, as I discussed, the first cancer patient that I managed, may she rest in peace. She lasted she lasted a while from the time she was diagnosed. She had the brain surgery. She had the craniotomy, and then I started seeing her in March of 2016, knowing that the 90-day rule was a thing. So we started in March, doctor-patient relationship. In August, we were able to get the 12.5-to-1 CBD THC calm from Surterra. And then shortly thereafter, Trulieve had their RSO gel capsules, the 50 milligrams, 25 milligrams CBD, 25 milligram THC. And then we started ramping her up to get her to the using the RSO protocol, which was building her up, titrating up to 1 gram a day for 90 days. That's a hell of a lot more than the 60 to 80 milligrams we talked about earlier. 20 milligrams per joint, 3 to 4 joints is considered a heavy user. Well, what was this woman doing at 1 gram a day? Now, granted, she didn't start at 1 gram a day today. We ramped up and we built up to that. She got to that point, and I've had other patients that have gotten up to that gram a day, and to my knowledge, none have gotten into that CHS range or arena.
One thing that's kind of confusing me is that I understand that CHS and am I right in saying CVS, chronic vomiting syndrome? Is that
CVS, yeah, CVS is cyclical. Cyclical vomiting syndrome is CVS. CHS is cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome.
Cannabinoid.
CUD is cannabis use disorder.
How can you tell the difference between the two? Is there
the best question of the day came out of the mouth of babes.
What did he ask?
Ask it again, because you said it so quickly.
How can you tell the difference between CVS and CHS?
Exactly. You got, when I was in training, I was taught that 85% of diagnoses are made by taking a good history, taking a good clinical history. And 95% of the diagnoses are made by taking a good clinical history and doing an excellent physical exam, a thorough physical exam. 5% of diagnoses is used with your diagnostics, labs, MRI, CT, X-rays, etc. Endoscopies, colonoscopies, but it's more to confirm your suspicions, not to make the diagnosis. Unfortunately, in the United States, we are so technologically heavy that we go to the big guns first and not sit down and talk to the patient. So to answer your question, the difference between the two, CHS, cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, is an individual that utilizes a high dose of cannabis, particularly THC, over a prolonged period of time. And the way to determine whether it is or isn't is two things. One, have them take a hot shower, because the hot shower will stimulate the TRPV1 receptor, and that will help and aid in controlling that. Secondly, abstinence. By being off of the cannabis for 24 hours and not having any vomiting, that kind of is a treatment and the diagnosis to determine whether it is CHS or not. Those are the two ways to determine it, but it has to be somebody that is using it. With CVS, it's usually somebody that's young. It's usually related to stress, anxiety, or even a hormonal trigger, but also can be linked with migraine headaches. There is a strong gut-brain link between CVS versus CHS. With CHS, you can have a gut-brain link, but it's more based on usage, which is why I encourage my patients to take what's called a cannabis holiday. And no, it doesn't mean going to Colorado for the weekend. It means if you're using it for a week, using it for 6 days, take 1 day off. For example, I personally take Sundays off. I don't use cannabis on Sundays. Why? Because that reboots my cannabinoid receptors. And it's as if I've never been on cannabis. So starting Monday morning, first thing in the morning, I go back to my hybrid vape. First thing in the morning, I do my hybrid edible. I get home from the office. I do my hybrid when I get home. And then before bed, I do my indica, edible, and pre-roll or vape. And I'm in bed and I'm good to go. But that's me. And so that's what I recommend, particularly with children. Because as many of you know, I'm one of a handful of doctors that manages kids in the state of Florida. So with cannabis, not anything else, but with medical cannabis. And I talk to the parents about giving the kids at least like giving them a day off, just like I did with the amphetamines when I was prescribing, the different medications for ADD, ADHD. I would encourage them to take the weekends off. Same thing with the cannabis. Give them a day off to reboot their receptors. But
two questions for you here.
Yeah,
First
go ahead.
off, how about piperidine? The active chemical in black pepper that comes in capsule form in most holistic stores. Does that also work as well?
Studies have been shown
capsaicin,
that yeah, studies have been shown that capsaicin does help with CHS.
Okay. Secondly, can we possibly tease out the illegitimate diagnoses of hyperemesis syndrome with the legitimate ones, so we can find out exactly what the actual N is here as far as how many affected individuals there are? Because without that, these things mean nothing.
Exactly. And in medicine, we have diagnoses of inclusion, or diagnoses of exclusion. CHS, cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, is considered a diagnosis of exclusion. So after you've exhausted all studies, all analysis, all diagnostic evidence, once you've exhausted everything and nothing is pointing to a hard, true, definitive diagnoses, then you can with certainty say, or some certainty state, it is CHS. But prior to getting there, we need to exhaust all of the rules and regulations of good medicine. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, you go into the emergency department and you get asked, and they don't ask you, are you a medical cannabis patient? They'll ask you, are you using any illegal drugs? Are you using any illicit drugs? And so I will say I am a medical cannabis patient. So if you do a urine drug screen, you're gonna find THC in my system. And now you want to label me CUD, or you want to label me CHS just because I've been using cannabis over the past 20 days of a 30-day span? No, I just have a truly weak stomach. I do have issues with my GI tract. Let's rule things out. Let's figure things out. Well, guess what? Once finally somebody did, they're like, hey, wait a minute, you have a hiatal hernia. You have gastric reflux. Let's give you a proton pump inhibitor. Let's give you an H2 blocker. Take your proton pump inhibitor in the morning, take your H2 blocker at night. Guess what, people? All of my nausea and vomiting stopped.
Well, I have 3 daughters with chronic migraine syndrome, and I guess that's genetics as far as they're concerned. But my daughter was very upset when truly you dropped the product with the nasal spray, because it actually did stop the migraine at the aura.
Yeah, exactly. And I encourage people to do that. Now, granted, I was using these 2 medications before we had a medical cannabis law in the state of Florida. Once we got a medical cannabis law in the state of Florida and I got my medical cannabis card, guess what Dr. Rosado no longer takes? A proton pump inhibitor and an H2 blocker.
Well, that is wonderful, because we really need to get more research involved in the medical program here in Florida. Because
do I have a proton pump inhibitor over the counter in my house? Yeah. Why? Because I'm a foodie, and every once in a while I'll overdo it.
Okay.
You know?
So does that help? Does that help? You eat and all that good stuff. The
I'm
pump.
sorry, say it again.
The pump. You say that you're using something and you're a food.
No, it's a proton pump inhibitor, the purple pill.
The purple pill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not to be confused with the blue pill.
Okay. All right.
yeah, I'm on Manjaro right now.
Because you know me.
Yeah, the blue pill is Viagra. I don't need that yet. But the purple pill, that for years it was promoted on TV, the purple pill.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So once they did an endoscopy and they found out that I did have a hiatal hernia and that I had gastric reflux, they started me on the purple pill in the morning, and a medication that's no longer on the market, ranitidine, was taken off the market because they found that the overuse of that caused gastric cancers. Prior to that, there was another medicine, the trade name was Tagamet, that was causing gynecomastia, caused men to have breasts, and so they took it off the market. Yeah, it was an H2 blocker, but they took that medicine away, replaced it with ranitidine, also known as what was it? Zofran? Yeah,
Zofran.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on ranitidine, I've been on cimetidine.
Yes, cimetidine. Cimetidine was Tagamet.
Yeah.
That was causing breast in men, gynecomastia, so they took it off the market. Then they came in with ranitidine, Zantac. It was Zantac. Zofran is for nausea. Zantac was
Zofran is nausea. I know that.
Yeah, Zofran is nausea. Zantac was ranitidine. They took that off the market, and now we have famotidine. Well, I don't use famotidine at all because it never did anything for me. That's why I chose ranitidine. But now I use cannabis. I use tinctures. That's it. I use the cannabis. I inhale cannabis. I use the Picotti method. I put oil in my belly button. If I'm feeling really nauseous, I'll put that. Why am I nauseous all the damn time? Well, who knows my life? Like, you guys follow me on social media.
Right.
I work for Doc MJ. I work with Doc MJ. I cover 4 of the clinics: Gainesville, Ocala, the Villages, Orlando. I've got an 85-year-old mother who had a stroke back in June of 2024 has had multiple mini strokes, has had multiple strokes, just had to have a pacemaker put in the day after Christmas because her heart rate is out of whack. I'm an only child, so I've got no siblings to help me support that. So I've got that. I've got 29-year-old daughter, twin daughters, and 5 grandchildren. Do I have a little bit of stress in my life?
I was just about to say, you go ahead and take as much dose as you need, okay?
May I suggest protonics? I guess that's the next one.
I don't know, but I want to ask about this topical, this cream.
Yeah.
That you have. What is it really for? What are the specifics? What is it like?
So it is a THC non-detectable cream, the recovery cream, for years. Well, since I started this movement back in 2013, 2014 with Gary and Carlos and Pete Sessa and Eric Stevens and then the doctors that came on board that were very supportive, Michelle Weiner, who Carlos cheated on me with on more than one occasion.
Los Malosi, no way.
There's a story behind that, but back in the day when Carlos was with the Florida Cannabis Coalition, he would utilize, ask doctors to come and speak, and so Dr. King, Dr. Gennister here in Lake Mary, Gennister Wilson King, Dr. Kelly King in Tampa, Michael
Burger.
Michael in Miami, the short dude, Michael. I forgot his last name. It'll come to me. Michelle Weiner, Barry Gordon, of course, Rafael Bones, Chanlate. All these guys started coming in, but originally it was just us, and so there weren't a whole lot of doctors to come and speak science. And so Carlos took me to dinner one night after we got done at a normal meeting at UCF, and I could tell he was a little uneasy. I'm like, Carlos, what are you so nervous about? I said, well, you and I need to have a conversation. I'm like, why? What's going on? Like, did I piss you off? Did I say something wrong? And he's like, no, I just want to let you know that I'm going to need to use like other doctors because you're in Central Florida and I got events in South Florida and I need doctors like in Miami or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, sure. No worries. Okay. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, are you concerned? Like, do you want to have an open relationship? You want to have an open marriage?
Wow, oh, wow. Los Malosi.
But so all of us started all these movements. So all these doctors, we got together and started working and educating people and supporting. So patients started coming to me and saying, when are you going to create your own product? That's my dad. So proud. Oh, Sophie. Hey, baby. Thank you for joining. That's one of my 29-year-olds.
Yeah.
Her and her twin sister turned 30 in April. So we're figuring out what we're going to do for their 30th birthday. But patients were asking me, Doc, when are you going to come up with your own? When are you going to come up with your own? And so one of the areas that I found that's lacking in the state of Florida are topical creams, particularly for the elderly population. In one of the clinics that I work at, the villages, we've got a large elderly population. A lot of them don't want to smoke, and they're so used to using, Bengay, or the Latinos want to use Vicks. So I'm like, you know what? Why don't I create something that is a compilation of everything? So it contains, oh, hey, Lexi. Thank you, baby.
How does it smell? How does the topical smell?
So it has a light menthol taste. Okay.
Hey, Mom.
It has a light menthol taste because I have menthol in it. I have arnica in it, but I also have lemongrass. So I threw in, make sure it had some limonene. I've got lavender in it. So it's got linalool. I've got mango seed oil. So it's got myrcene. All of these terpene products and all these terpenes to help with the pain and the inflammation. And of course, the different phytocannabinoids, CBD, CBG, but no detectable THC.
Right.
That was stimulated because I wanted to go broad spectrum, I wanted to go full spectrum and use, be under the law with the 0.3. But as a former medical review officer and the spouse of a former employee of mine, I have an ex-nurse practitioner whose husband is a DOT, has his CDL license, and was applying for a job with UPS and FedEx. He went to a Spanish store, saw a topical cream for pain, bought it, used it, went and did a urine drug screen, and tested positive for THC. His wife calls me up and says, there's no freaking way that he could have tested positive for THC. I'm like, he had to have used something. I said, ask him what he's been using, what he's bought. And he heard the conversation because I was on speaker, and he walked in and he's like, when you know, you know. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, and he brought the jar, and it said arnica on the jar, but it had a cannabis leaf on it. When she took it, it was a full spectrum product with THC in it. Well, for those individuals that cannot use or have anything, it has that. And so if you see one of the images, I have firefighters represented. I have first responders. As a former first responder, for those of you that don't know, I used to be an EMT, then a EMT paramedic in Central Florida. And back then, we had no cannabis laws, so we were all functional alcoholics. That's how we dealt with our PTSD. That's how we dealt with our stress.
Correct.
And so now we have a medical cannabis law, but still, because certain counties don't allow first responders to have a medical cannabis card. But shout out to Michael Minardi, who took on the case against Pinellas County of that firefighter that had his medical cannabis card and got in trouble. Kudos to Mike for stepping up and defending. But because of that, I created this formulation. So it is a topical cream used for musculoskeletal disorders, but also peripheral neuropathies. I have a compression fracture in my spine from an auto accident back in the 80s. And every once in a while, when it's inflamed, I get like a numbness and tingling sensation on the side of my thigh, also known as neuralgia paresthetica. Proof that I did go to medical school. I do know some medical terms. And I rubbed that cream on the side of my thigh, and literally within seconds, it disappears because the nerve endings have cannabinoid receptors, and so it addresses that type of pain. So peripheral neuropathies, as well as musculoskeletal disorders, joint pains, etc., migraine headaches, putting it on the nape of the neck, the temples, also helps with the migraine headaches situation. But always, as always, I like to and encourage people to use multiple modes of administration. Back in the day, back in 2016, 2017, Carlos and I did a Zoom meeting before Zoom was the thing, before COVID. We did one where we were talking about pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, which is how you use cannabis, and depending on how you use it will determine, one, how quickly it works in your body, but two, how long it stays in your body. And so you want to mix and match your modes of administration so that you're covered better longer. But
now we have a medical program here in Florida. It's the biggest medical program in the country, and yet I still consider it a quasi medical program, because once you leave the doctor, once somebody is outside of your realm of care for whatever reason, if they go to a dispensary and they ask someone behind the counter what cultivar would be best for my migraines, or what product would be best, they never mention ratio products. I noticed that. They almost never, ever mention ratio products. I asked them about a product with extra CBG or CBN because my wife has high interocular pain, and they have no clue as to how to get the medication.
And most importantly, and this has been an issue that I've had this conversation with Brett Puffenberger for years, and as well as you guys, about the lack of education that exists with the quote unquote bud tenders. The MMTCs are not or have not invested in educating their employees properly. And one of the things, kudos to Lac du Flambeau, the indigenous tribe in northwestern Wisconsin, they have a dispensary on
I saw
their,
that YouTube.
yeah, they have a dispensary in their, in their tribe, them as well as, others. But theirs is not cannabis. They're still in Wisconsin. It's hemp-based products, but they've invited other medical cannabis doctors, other scientists to educate their staff, to help their staff be able to educate and work with their clients. The employees for the MMTCs are great in promoting their company products. Great. I have no doubt about that. But they're not physicians. They're not healthcare professionals. And that's one of the things I am impressed with a lot of the states in the northeastern portion of the United States that require a pharmacist to be on site, because that pharmacist a pharmacist in any conventional pharmacy, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, etc., can navigate a patient through multiple medications. By having somebody there that can help them with the drug interactions, with what modes of administration to use based on what conditions they have, and to avoid negative interactions. That's where the system is lacking. So yeah, Gary, I agree with you 1,000%. Well, first and foremost, education needs to be stepped up, and the education needs to start at the level of the bud tender. Unfortunately, they have a revolving door. These people don't stay there very long. So to invest in educating these people and the amount of time that it would take to do that, and then you've invested all this time in training them, and then they leave for somebody else or somewhere else or whatever. So it's kind of fickle and it's difficult. But yeah, the modes of administration. And remember, there's only 2,500 certifying physicians in the state of Florida. There's 55,000 licensed physicians in the state of Florida, but only 2,500 of us recommend cannabis. And of those 2,500, yeah, and of those 2,500, how many of us are a Barry Gordon, a Michelle Weir, a Robert Jones,
Well, in this day and age where we have nurse practitioners basically stepping in for the place of the doctor, or we have CNAs stepping in for the place of nurses, I see that we also have bud tenders stepping in for the place of pharmacists, and it is just not an equivalency there.
No, it isn't, and it's dangerous because
that's right, Gary.
They don't know, when patients come in, and you guys know the types of patients that I normally see. I see very, very difficult, very complicated cases, very difficult patients. Yeah. And they come in and they're taking 20 to 30 pills a day, 20, 30 different medications, not pills, 20 to 30 different medications a day. And they go in to see the bud tender, and they go in to take their medicine. And even though I give them my recommendations and I write them down for them and say, this is what I recommend you get, and if they come in and they say, look, in the past, I've used edibles, but it doesn't work. Okay, well, have you had your gallbladder removed? First question I ask. Yeah, I have. Okay, well, if you've had your gallbladder removed, there's a high probability you're not going to be able to absorb the cannabis or metabolize the cannabis. That's common. That's known. That's known for us in the medical field. But a lot of the bud tenders don't know that. So they don't know to start there. Or, like Gary said, the ratio-based products. I did genetic testing on myself. I did the endo-DNA that was created by my friend in California, Len May, and discovered that I am an ultra-slow THC metabolizer. I'm an ultra-fast CBD metabolizer, and I'm a normal ratio-based metabolizer. So what does that say? If I'm going to use an edible because I'm an ultra-slow THC metabolizer, I got to take my edible at dinner time so that it starts kicking in by bedtime.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. But
Yeah.
instead of taking 2 to 3 hours to work on me, it takes 3 to 4 hours for it to work on me.
So everybody is different. I get it.
Exactly. One size does not fit all. And like, Professor Lemire Hanush, who was Rafal Meshulam's right-hand man, who's now taken the role of lead investigator at Hebrew University, he says from stage, cannabis is not the panacea. It is not a one-size-fits-all, and it doesn't work on everybody. But you know what? It's a good place to start. And then from there, doing additional testing. Let's do some genetic testing, just like I did in behavioral mental health. When somebody would come in, a 22-year-old would come in and say, you know what, doc, I've been on psych med since I've been a teenager. Since I've been a child, I've been using psych meds and none have worked for me. Okay, let's do genetic testing. Let's see how you metabolize medicines. And once we determine that, we'll go through and we'll see that every medication that they've been given is not metabolized in their body. So all they've got is expensive urine and fecal material, and it's all going down the toilet. Let's figure things out. Let's be physicians and stop being biased or saying that people are drug seekers, because that hurts. Being told that you're a drug seeker when in reality you are in pain. I could be classified as a drug seeker. Why is that? Because I am allergic to hydrocodone. I am allergic to oxycodone, and I do not metabolize morphine. When I had a pulmonary emboli and I was on the verge of death in 2004, and they were giving me morphine every 2 to 3 hours for the quote unquote pain, I'm like, it doesn't work. Please stop giving. I got to the point where I said, please just don't give it to me. I'm getting sick to my stomach, making my stomach worse, and I'm constipated. Don't give it to me. Now, what does work on me? Demerol. But if I go into an emergency room and say, you know what? Don't give me these. This is what works for me. The minute I say the D word, oh, he's a drug seeker. No, I'm not a drug seeker. I just know what fucking works.
Right. That's what leads to mental issues and people that do smoke. That's what leads people to mental depression.
Grown-ass man.
I'm a drug addict.
Yeah, I know what works on me. Right. So when a patient comes into the office and I ask them, how experienced are you with medical cannabis? It's not because I'm trying to pry. I want to know how experienced they are to determine how much education I'm going to give them and determine which MMTC I'm going to direct them towards, because certain MMTCs are known for not being great educators. There are other MMTCs that are very well known for being excellent educators. And so having been in it from the ground floor and working my way up and seeing what's come in, what's not come in, we need to be mindful and understanding of all the stuff that we're using, conventional medicine, integrative medicine, etc. One of my patients, thank you for speaking up, when I medicate her and her family, we sit down and we go through all of their medical conditions, we go through all of their labs, and then we create a program specific for them. That's how I practice medical cannabis. Same way I practice medicine. And there's a handful of us that are that. We scrutinize our patients. My buddy Chanlate, whose uncle was the director of the general surgery department in the Dominican Republic, where I did my internship, my first year rotation, who just passed away, may he rest in peace. But Dr. Chanlate, amazing medical cannabis doctor. Of course, Barry with his Doobie scale, Mike McKenzie, these are the OGs. These are the guys that have stuck it out, dealt with all the stigma, dealt with all the negativity, dealt with all the bullshit, and we're still doing it. David, the pediatrician, the alternative pediatrician down in Tampa, these are the guys that, NORML has always highlighted. How could I forget Nick Bottaro, the ophthalmologist that I learned on treating patients with glaucoma.
Really?
Yeah.
Nick's the man.
I need his information.
Let's not forget that we got this program because a little girl had a seizure disorder, and we had a hand doctor, a hand physiologist, actually dictating policy to Gates, who used to call me at 9:00 at night and say, "What the heck did he mean when he said this?" I had to actually translate. But we had such dubious beginnings, and yet we have come so far, and yet we have so much farther to go. And I'd love to stay on for another hour or so, but we have run out of time. And
Well,
but I did want to throw out a couple quick questions. Carlos, you go ahead with your first question.
I just going off of what you were talking about, Dr. Rosado, and you casually, we all right. So we've got some comments here, and one stuck out mostly to me about talking about how you're so real that they can tell just from this conversation that you're so real. But we've been doing this for a long time. You've highlighted a bunch of stuff that we were doing. You've been doing this for a long time. You're not just some guy trying to hawk a CBD cream. You're not, you know what I mean? Like, you've written a book on the subject. You've treated several patients.
7 books, but who's counting?
You've written right? Back when the campaign needed a doctor to speak on subjects, and you wanted nothing in return for it. I am very much well aware that you coming onto the show today does not mean that you're going to get an uptick on patients. You are not just a doctor or some guy hawking a cream. You're a true activist. You really care about this plant and the way that this plant synergizes with humans and how it can help people medically. I guess my question is more of a personal question than a medical question. How pissed off do you get when you see these things about scromiting and misinformation coming out about the plant? Right.
Well, now all of you know why I have a man crush on this guy.
He asked the realest questions, though.
Well, he's as passionate about it as all of us that have been in it. And you're right. I tell people this from, everybody comes into my office, when they ask me, how'd you get involved in this? Or why do you do this? And I'll say, I've been advocating for cannabis before I was recommending for it. We had no rules or regulations, and we started advocating and pushing and promoting. And what pisses me off more than anything is the biases and the labels that people are getting. We have enough stress and trauma in this world as we know it. Following the pandemic and being told that you could not socialize, and grandparents dying and their children not being able to go in and claim their bodies because they were in an assisted living facility and no one was allowed in or out. And they can see their dead family members through the window. And I know this personally because one of my little sisters, who is in Miami, who went to medical school with me, her mom was in an ALF, passed away, and could see her through the window and couldn't go in and get her mom's body to do the proper burial. And parents, children were separated. That created an inordinate amount of stress, not to mention financially how it affected people. They lost their jobs, they lost their incomes, they lost their abilities to live. And add to that all of the turmoil that has gone on post that. And then to turn around and say, oh, you've got CHS or you have cannabis use disorder, and give them one more label, one more diagnosis that's really not theirs. That sucks. Let's figure things out. Let's work together. Let's get to the root cause of it rather than just throwing one more fucking medicine at them. I started this one lady this week that was on no less than 7 psych meds. 7 psych meds. That's
a lot. And we lost a cousin.
Like, wait a minute. At what point do you say, you know what? Let's look at a different perspective. Right. Let's look at a different angle here. Let's consider other options rather than just saying that. So yeah, it does piss me off, but more than piss me off, I use that as energy, as impetus to take this message not only in the to the people in the residents in the state of Florida, but also to the people outside the state of Florida, I am licensed in different states, but also taking it south of the border, north of the border. Canada has had a medical program since 2000. I still get calls and text messages and messages through WhatsApp from Canadians. Hey, doc, can you help me with this? Can you help me with my child? Ooh, don't you guys have a program up there? Yeah, but our pediatrician isn't as well versed or hasn't managed as many kids as you have. Can you help us? Sure, absolutely. Whatever you need. Let's work this out. Been to Thailand, been to Italy, been all over, pushing and promoting, teaching and educating politicians, physicians, healthcare providers, and lay people and advocates. So yeah, it gives me the drive. So yeah, I could be pissed off and wallow in it and be like many advocates that piss and moan and say, look how great we are. No, yeah, we are great because we are promoting God's work. We are promoting God's plant, God's medicine.
Right, absolutely. Tell it.
It is a fucking plant. It came out, it was in the Garden of Eden. That's where it came from. It's not man-made. Let's push and promote it. Let's use it. The majority of our medications come from plants. I mean, where do opiates come from? Opium. What is opium?
Man-made.
No, opium is a plant, baby.
I'm saying when they put it inside of those pills and all that extra stuff.
Poppy seeds. That's why if you eat an everything bagel or poppy seed bagel and you get a urine drug test, you're going to test positive for opiates.
It's a plant only. Yeah, we want the plant only. Whatever it's come with the plant, give me the plant. I don't care. Give me the plant.
So it gives me the energy and the drive, and it gives us the energy and the drive. I mean, how many miles did you put on your vehicle, Gary, when all this stuff started?
And I ran my van to the ground.
Old.
And what compensation did you receive except a pat on the ass? And many times you got the scars and you got the arrow marks on your back from people turning around and giving you shit for you doing your work and defending your wife and your family.
I guess part of the problem is in ancient times, indigenous people went to the medicine man, and he was the one who said, yes, you need this herb, you need that herb. It was holistic medicine, but there was a central location where you could go for all the information you have. It wasn't necessarily the lay person who was making the rules and regulations as to how this medication should be distributed. That's what we have nowadays. I just got this little device. I don't know if you can see it. If you blow this up, there you go. This is an interesting new device. Somebody was selling it for like $35. I got this actually for $4 on Temu. But the thing is, it's a butane lighter at the bottom that shoots a flame directly up through a chamber. Sorry, wherever it went. And what happens is you're inhaling through a butane flame. Now, I don't know whether it's incomplete combustion or not, but it's a possibility you could also be inhaling some carbon monoxide here as well, because you're directly inhaling the butane flame at the same time. That's what happens when a doctor or somebody who is not familiar with the physics and the logic of this thing develops a new type of delivery device. So if you're interested in sucking butane, feel free to buy one of these things, but I don't recommend it as a layperson. But look
at that. Carlos is the medicine man. Saved my kid's life. Yeah. And then now with the changes in the rules and regulations, Carlos, how are you going to make ends meet? How are you going to make a living?
It's a good question.
I mean, that hemp bill is going to destroy Carlos's business if it goes through as planned. And it's going to affect the CBD business because it's going to affect what is the concept of full spectrum product and whether it's legal or not. So that actually may affect your product as well. But I appreciate that you have a doctor-developed product that actually is a ratio product and is actually made to work medically and not just made just to get you high or just to get you to sleep at night, which is what they're offering.
Yeah, symbiotically borrowing from our friends, in Israel, the entourage effect, combining terpenes in conjunction with, everything else. Not all and other substances, I brought in arnica, I brought in, all these other different substances to work together to give the best outcome. And stay tuned because we have other formulations coming. Thanks to my buddy, Dr. Tony Ferrari, who has 2 PhDs in chemistry. And so I partnered with a PhD. So it's an MD, PhD formulated product. So more science than you really want to know. But it's two geeks got together and we geeked out and created this.
Geek.
It is so great to have Doc. I
Geek.
mean, we sometimes get heavily involved in the politics, but I love when we get a chance to get some scientific things, in part because it gives Chris a chance to mispronounce a whole bunch of medical terms, which I get to correct him on. But it's also great to get the science of this whole concept. And we do got a lot of other doctors coming up on our schedule over the next couple of months. Dr. Peter Greenspoon's got a great book coming out on seniors and cannabis, and he will be joining us in May. And I hope to get Ethan Russo back because I still got to talk to him about my beef with GW Pharmaceuticals. But that's another thing altogether.
But he's in fact, his work I quote all the time. Ethan Russo. In fact, when I submit my, the reason for somebody using flower in the state of Florida, I quote Ethan Russo's article from 2018 on the benefits of utilizing cannabis in an inhalatory fashion, and his theory on clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. I promote that and speak to that all the time, every day with my patients. And he has amazing videos on this specific topic as well. So if anybody wants additional information, go to YouTube, check out Dr. Ethan Russo, Russo, on cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, cannabis use disorder, and cyclic vomiting syndrome. You'll get far more information than we got today in an hour from somebody that has published hundreds, if not thousands, of books and medical textbooks.
And where can people go to find your medication that you developed?
Okay, so I do have a website. It is josephrosadomd.com, which is right there. However, because of the promotion for the beginning of the year promotion, and with the Three Kings Day coming up, or Day of Epiphany, January 6th, I launched a media blitz, social media blitz, mainstream media blitz, promoting the cream to be used as a gift for the Three Kings Day, Day of Epiphany. Just like the Three Kings took gifts to the baby Jesus according to history, so too the Three Kings, or Dr. Rosado, is going to be bringing creams to you. I'm not going to be coming to your house in a camel, but you can place.
Oh my God! You just took it. I was about to ask, which animal are you going to be on when you knock on the door?
Just so you know,
of course, we used to in the Bronx, we put lettuce under our beds so that the Three Kings would give lettuce to their camels, to give them the energy to go from house to house to house. Okay. Here we give them grass. I may put an eighth under my pillow or under my bed.
Tell them to smoke that. I like it.
As somebody who was attempted to smoke both myrrh and frankincense, I can tell you it didn't do much for me.
But yeah, so right now, josephrosadomd.com is the landing page to order the creams. So understand that that's what you're going to find.
Now, guys, just so you know, starting next week, the good folks at Tallahassee start to go back to their desks, and the session begins. Yes. And we've got a whole bunch of bills that we got going on this year. Again, I'm trying to push my damnedest to get opioid dependency thing as a qualifying condition, so that we don't have to have issues in regards to getting it prescribed for that, and so we could possibly get it into rehab facilities, which right now it is illegal, where it actually is a good way to abate opioid dependency issues.
Or like they do in Illinois, patients with an opiate prescription go to a dispensary, a medical cannabis dispensary, and get cannabis in place of opiates.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. And of course, we have a bill that prevents parents from having their kids taken away because they're medical cannabis patients and they have a medical card. Because right now, Children and Family Services will petition you to have your kids taken away if they see that there is cannabis in the house, even if it's locked up and the kids have no access to it whatsoever. So we have that as a bill where if the only issue in the house is the fact that the parents are using cannabis, it is not a legitimate reason to have your kids taken away. I think that it just makes perfect sense. We just have to have people with science and politics get together and push these things forward, as well as making certain that people do not get taken off the liver transplant list because they claim that there's less survivability when you're using cannabis, when it's exactly the opposite because it's an anti-inflammatory. So those kind of things where we have to get science and politics mixed together is about to happen again. We look forward to you guys joining us. Of course, I'll be at the Cannabis at the Capitol that FCAN is putting on in a couple of weeks. And we hope that you will join us in getting these bills pushed forward. We need your help. Join Suncoast NORML. All you have to do is go to suncoastnormal.org, .info. What is it? Org.
.org.
Yeah, info is the
email address,
email address, and join us in the fight, because this fight, as long as it's going on, is nowhere near over. And we're so grateful that we have soldados de verdad like we have with Dr. Rosado right there.
Always a pleasure. It's an honor to meet up with you guys. Like we said early on, we go way back. You know, we're going, 10 years since 2016, but we started 12 years ago. So a 12-year friendship. You guys have been working with me and my friends longer than I've been married in some of my marriages.
Well, we love you, Joe. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Always a pleasure, Carlos. You're my man.
I just wanted to mention two things before we go. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Suncoast NORML. And we got a new Instagram at Suncoast NORML at Suncoast _normal. There you go. And don't forget to like, click, and share this episode.
And we can't underscore how much that underscore means to us too, by the way. They've given us a hell of a time.
Very important.
You got anything else, Gary?
That is it for me. I got my coffee con leche right here, and I got my my butane inhaler, and I'm good.
What about you, Katrina? You got anything else?
No, I just want this cream. I'm kind of excited. I'm gonna go and look into it.
Be sure to support Dr. Joe Rosado, my favorite cannabis doctor. Yeah, I said that, Dr. Wiener and Dr. Gordon.
Got the throne back. You got the throne back, Joe. Got the throne back.
The thing is, we're all a team, and you heard me mention them all. And when people find me, because I'm all over social media, it's easy to find. You know, I'm all LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. But when patients reach out to me from different parts of the state of Florida and they ask me to be my patient, I'm like, look, I'm here's where I am. If you can make it, great. If you can't, here's who you can see. And it's like, I got a Rolodex. For those of you that are not old enough to remember Rolodex, Google it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the contact section on your phone.
Yeah, it's a contact section. And so I have a list of people that I refer to all the time, because we are a team and we have been doing this literally from day one.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
See y'all later. Good night,
Peace
everybody.
out.